Hello everyone, John Trigger 12 back here again with another video. And yes, it's time for another review. And seeing as how Friday X-Men Days of Future Past just came out, I decided to make another movie review for you guys for X-Men Days of Future Past. Now, seeing as how it was just awesome, it was amazing, it was explosive, and it was pretty long, I'm going to try and get right into the point. I'm going to give you the things I liked, things I didn't like, my overall feelings about the movie, and of course, predictions for the sequels. But let's just start with the things I really enjoyed. First off, I love the overall storyline. I mean, it's good to see that the X Men are back and they're back in action, and we're not done. We're done with the origin stories and stuff. Because, to tell you the truth, as much as I enjoy First Class, like, I don't know, I'm kind of getting sick of like these origin stories. Like, can't we just stick with the X-Men and just deal with their original ideas? But I don't know, it was just really amazing to see like how we can have like these alternate timelines, and then you have time travel, and then it was just amazing. It was really cool, and it was really awesome to have Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, be the main protagonist throughout the whole thing. Because when you have like the balance of like the younger and older Magneto and Xavier's, and then you have Mystique, and then you have Beast and Iceman and all that other shit, it's very hard to like balance them out. But you kind of have Wolverine be obviously the main hero, and he really is. It's just amazing. I really think Hugh Jackman did like one of the best Wolverine performances, in my personal opinion. I mean, like, the performances in this movie were just great, even for characters that weren't even in the movie that long, who reprised their roles, were great. Just overall feeling. Overall, it was just really great. I just loved the whole experience of watching it. I love the my one of my favorite parts was Quicksilver. I made a previous X-Men video stating who would be better, the X-Men version or the Avengers version of Quicksilver, because they will be featuring Quicksilver in Age of Ultron, a different Quicksilver. But goddamn, Quicksilver in this movie was amazing. He was funny. He was cool. His power looked amazing. His like whole thing was just so cool. And plus, I did state that I would prefer the X-Men version more than the Age of Ultron. A lot of people have been saying like, "Oh no, Avengers gonna be better." Fuck you guys. Come on. The Quicksilver in this movie was awesome. He was funny. He was just a kid. He was a kid, and that's what he needs to be. He was funny. He was cocky. He was kind of a douche. That's what Quicksilver needs to be. He needs to be cocky and a douche. And plus, this is going to be the more canon Quicksilver, seeing as how he's more of the actual origin, because Quicksilver is an X-Men character. And I like how they kind of dove into his origins for a second, because there's a quick sequence, spoilers, there's a quick sequence when he breaks out Magneto, and he kind of states what his powers are, and what his powers are. He kind of goes and states, my mother knew a guy who could do that. And then it's like, oh shit, they kind of dove into his origins a little bit without having to give away too much. So I don't know if any other comic book fans caught that, but he does state that to Magneto, which would probably point out that Magneto is his father, because in the comics Magneto is the father of Quicksilver. So hopefully we'll dove into that in the future, seeing as how Quicksilver will be featured in the sequel, but I'll get into that later. But Quicksilver was just awesome. I loved him. He was one of my favorite parts. He was just funny as hell. I just loved him. I wish he was in more of the sequences. But overall, everybody else who came back were great. Michael Fassbender was great as Magneto. McKellen was great as Magneto. I wish he was in the movie more. Ian McKellen. I wish he was in there more. But what can you do? Same thing about Patrick Stewart. Although I enjoyed his monologues. He could have been there a lot longer as well. James McAvoy was great. I think he was a little too whiny and bitchy, but overall he did he did a great job as Xavier again. It was just pretty cool. Beast transformations were cool. The mutant powers that they brought back were cool. referencing prior characters from this franchise were cool, and I just love the overall feeling of how they got both installments of the timelines of both characters, well, not characters, but both X Men groups together. You know, like the first class group and the current group together. I really like that, and how they. I also like how they jump back and forth from time. You know, because a lot of movies lately have been dealing with time travel and just alternate timelines, and it's been kind of sketchy to balance them out. But I think it did a pretty good job on this one. You know, but it was just awesome. The movie was a great experience. But and also spoilers for anybody who's yet to seen it. But I also love the ending where Wolverine saves the day. Of course, he goes back in time, and of course everyone's back. The original X team's back together. They're not dead. They're not gone. Xavier's back, and of course the piece that really got to me that I wasn't even expecting. I really didn't think. But Jean Grey, yes, Jean Grey is back in action. She's alive. She's not dead anymore. The timeline is not screwed up. Everything's good. Wolverine hopefully is back in action to the way he should be. But Jean Grey is back. And yes, Scott Summers is also back, ironically. Back to his douchey self. But he is back as well. But everybody's back. You know, Storm's good. Kitty's good. Colossus is good. Iceman is good. With Rogue, which is interesting. And Xavier's back to teaching kids. The school is back in action. You know, everybody's happy. Everybody's good. Wolverine saved the day. Time is just really hard to understand. But overall, let's get into the things that I didn't really like about this movie, because overall, even though I love this movie and this movie was great, it does has its flaws. So I'm going to get into the things I really didn't enjoy about this movie. First off, I didn't really like the main antagonist about this movie, because you don't really get the feeling that he is the main antagonist. It felt more of like, you know, Magneto being the main villain again. It kind of felt that way, you know, because as you all know, the main antagonist was Trask. You know, Trask of Trask Industries created the Sentinels because he has this. He wants to save the human race, or humans rather, from mutants, and wants to keep them in line and destroy them. You know, we're in the Vietnam War era where, you know, America's losing and America's getting screwed over by the Vietnamese, Koreans, and Russians, and then you the fucking, this is post Cuban Missile Crisis stuff, or, you know, it's just crazy outlaw type shit. So he creates the Sentinels to obviously eliminate the mutants, but then Sentinels, obviously in current timeline, destroy everything and just kill mutants and humans, especially humans who help out mutants. So it's all kind of just crazy, fucked up. But the thing I didn't really like about Trask, other than the fact that Peter Dinklage plays him, I love Peter Dinklage. Like his performance was awesome. I loved him. I wish he was more in the movie, but I don't know. Like it kind of felt like he didn't feel like the villain. You know, he kind of felt like just a dude who was doing a job. You know, like I didn't like that. Like I wish he was more villainous and more like just crazy, because that's what Marvel villains are. They're crazy, they're wacky, and they, you know, like Green Goblin is, now Spider-Man, I will kill you. You know, they're kind of like Marvel villains are like that, you know, but he was just very calm, collected, and was like, we have a new enemy out there. You know, it's I don't know. And you kind of get into his feelings of the overall about the mutant cause, because, you know, like you have a scene where he's talking to Stryker, and yes, Stryker's back as always, about the mutant problem, and he kind of states like, yeah, you really hate mutants, and he's like, no, on the contrary, I actually really admire mutants. They interest me. You know, and that's kind of the end of it. You don't really hear him talk about it again. It's kind of like, why don't you get in there? Why does he want to delete the mutants from history? This is just really weird. But what can you do? Another thing I really didn't like was the characters, the X-Men classic and new mutant characters. You hardly see that much. I mean, like, yeah, We get some pretty cool action sequences with, Sentinels and Warpath and Blink and whatnot, which was pretty cool. But there's various other characters that they brought back, and various other characters that they brought in for this movie that you hardly get to see, that you really want to see. Like they brought back Havoc. He's only in like one scene, which really sucked. I really enjoyed him. Previous First Class characters, they're kind of dead, which is really weird. They're just dead and experimented on, and it's good that they referenced them, but I don't know. I didn't think it was a point to kill them. And then you have Emma Frost, where her power is referenced, but you never see her. What the fuck is that? Why didn't we get to see Emma Frost? That really aggravated the fuck out of me. I loved her in First Class. I didn't see why she couldn't come back because of what? And then you have other characters like Rogue, who we knew was going to be in this movie. She's only in one scene, guys. Spoilers. But she's only in one scene. Like, what the fuck? Like, there's various other characters who were in this movie that weren't even... You didn't even know, but had shit timing. And, like, they just weren't in this movie enough. And there's characters that weren't in this movie that should have been in there. Like, it was just weird. And then, like, the ending, of course, ends with... I hated the ending. I really didn't like it because... It ends with, Wolverine, once again, Logan talking to Xavier about time and, like, trying to understand what the heck just happened. So he explains to them, and they just go back and forth in conversation. Well, we go back in time, and we see that Wolverine does get saved, but apparently by Stryker, which would make sense, but then you find out that Mystique is Stryker. It's like, what? What the fuck? That doesn't make sense. Why did Mystique have to be Stryker to save Wolverine? I guess it would make somewhat sense so that Wolverine could survive, but at the same time, like, you could have just had the real Stryker do it because of his own personal interest of him, but I guess it just sets the stage for Wolverine becoming who he is later on. But, I don't know, I thought it was kind of weird. It was just weird overall. Same thing about, like, the panning. There was a lot of really weird panning. Like, I don't know what was Bryan Singer doing, but he kept panning through, like just weird, I don't know. The zooms were just really, really weird. Like, his camera movements in this movie were just really weird. I just don't understand that. I don't know what was his thing. Maybe it was the 3D shit, but I don't know. It was just really weird. But overall, it was just... Those were just things that really aggravated me. And plus, there were other things that I'm not going to get into just for the sake of it, but there were flaws in this movie. I can't really get all the way detailed into it because of my time limit, but overall, the movie was awesome. It was pretty good. I really like references from, of that era. I love the Sanford and Sons reference. I don't know if anybody else caught that, but yes, it was funny. But everything was pretty cool, but that's all I'm going to say. If I had to give it a rating, I give it a good 8.5. It was a good movie. It's not the best of the X-Men movies, but I would consider it, on my top 5 best X-Men movies, my favorite X-Men movies. And I cannot wait for the sequel. And yes, people, they are making a sequel to X-Men Days of Future Past. Yes. Bryan Singer and 20th Century Fox already released it. Well, they didn't release it, but they already announced it even before this movie was... already going to be coming out in theaters. And it's going to be titled X-Men Apocalypse and be featuring, the Apocalypse storyline and that whole character. So, yes, there'll be another X-Men. And, yes, we hopefully would be featuring future X-Men stuff. But, overall, I can't wait for that. I'll probably make a second video talking about my sequel predictions, but overall, that was my review for X-Men Days of Future Past. I loved a lot of things. There were things I really didn't like, specifically the ending. I would have liked more of a X-Men walkthrough, just walking down badass. But what can you do? But overall, the movie was amazing. I loved everything. The performances were great. The effects were great. People need to just stop bitching. It's an X-Men movie. You're trying to find logic in a Marvel comic book movie, specifically an X-Men movie that's dealing with time travel. Get the fuck out of the theater, bitch, because you ain't gonna find it, so fuck off. But overall, the X-Men Days of Future Past was awesome. I'll make more videos about personal things that I liked about and what I'm looking forward to. But overall, thanks for watching.